Today on the official Marvel podcast, we are joined by Brad Winderbaum, Marvel Studios head of television, streaming, and animation, for an exclusive preview for Marvel Television in 2026.
I'll tell you this, since I'm the first episode of the year, we're developing a few things right now behind the scenes. Obviously, nothing's been greenlit yet, but we are actively developing the next zombie story.
We're also joined by Marvel Comics Associate Editor Danny Khazem, who gives us a rundown of 5 Los Angeles-based Marvel Comics series you need to know.
How could you be sitting in New York City in Central Park at the Avengers Mansion and not be like, why didn't I go out west? Like, this seems like a blast.
Plus, we are celebrating the launch of an all-new Iron Man issue number 1 with the series writer, Joshua Williamson.
Tony's the weapon. It's not the armor. Other people can put on that armor, and we've seen that other people can build that armor, but they can't do what Tony does.
I'm Victoria Ying.
I'm Langston Belton.
And this is the official Marvel podcast.
All right, Victoria, it is a new year. We made it. Congratulations. Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
Well, here's to hoping 26 is better than 25.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, read more comics is one of my New Year's resolutions. How about you, Langston?
You took mine. I was going to say read more comics. I was like,
we need a book club. We need a comics book club.
We should. I'm down for that. I've never been a part of one, and it's never too late, right? But additionally, I'm looking forward to the upcoming slate from Marvel Television and Marvel Animation for 2026. Wonder Man, Daredevil Born Again, X-Men 97, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
We are spoiled for sure this year. And if you're curious about what else is coming, don't worry. We've got Brad Winderbaum, head of television, streaming, and animation for Marvel Studios, alongside fellow official Marvel podcast co-host Preeti Chibber to break it all down. Check it out.
"2025 was a really incredible year for Marvel Television, a year that wrapped with basking in the goriness of Marvel zombies. Did you expect the massive fan reaction to the series?"
I hoped for the massive fan reaction to the series. You know, I try to keep myself in the perspective of the fans and try to remember that I am a fan and why I got into this business in the first place was my love of these characters and love of this universe. So as the show started to come together, I loved it at every step of the way. You know, it was nostalgic, but it was also new. I loved that it was in the story that Brian and Zeb put together. It really was character focused, and they had found in Kamala Khan this protagonist that really had a lot of peril in this zombie world beyond the blood and gore and danger that a zombie apocalypse, creates. It was her character was in jeopardy. She was a very innocent, wide-eyed, optimistic character, and the underlying tension in that whole series about whether or not she would be corrupted by this terrible place was really a brilliant approach, I thought. I always had fun watching it, and I hoped that the audience and the fans would love it as much as I do, and they did. So I'm very, very grateful for that.
Do you think that maybe we will be seeing more of our zombie friends in the future?
I certainly hope so. I'll tell you this, since I'm the first episode of the year, we're developing a few things right now behind the scenes. Obviously, nothing's been greenlit yet, but we are actively developing the next zombie story. So fingers crossed. It's not official, but Brian's back in the house and we're starting to talk about ideas. The little bit I've heard so far is incredible.
Okay. I'm going to be keeping every finger is extremely crossed that we can get this.
Me too.
So we got to talk about 2026 because it is looking stacked. In just a few weeks, Wonder Man drops on Disney+. The series is completely different from anything else we've seen before in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. How did the concept for this show come about?
Having made so many projects at this point, I can tell you that every single film, every television show, they kind of have an independent personality and soul beyond even the people behind the scenes making it. And certainly Wonder Man had its own personality and soul from the beginning. I mean, it manifested itself into being in a lot of ways. Destin Cretton and Jonathan Schwartz were making Shang-Chi with Sir Ben and talking about doing some sort of show with Trevor Slattery and continuing the Trevor Slattery story. And simultaneously, Stephen Broussard and Brian Gay were tossing around doing a Simon Williams project, and what does that look like, and how can we do Wonder Man? And both ideas were kind of poking at an actor's journey story and working behind the scenes in the creative arts, which is obviously a concept that's really intimate to all of us who make movies. And the ideas kind of naturally merged. And all of a sudden, we had this amazing two-hander start to manifest itself between Trevor Slattery and Simon Williams. And then we brought on Andrew Guest, who I had worked on Hawkeye with, who's an incredible writer. He's worked on some of my favorite shows of the last, decade and a half. He really found the take, which was like an uncynical, earnest view of the trials and tribulations of anyone in the arts. I mean, it's a story about the performing arts, but I think it really speaks to anybody who has, artistic ambitions and is balancing their own need to express themselves with the realities of having to make money in this world.
So moving on, because I know we have so much to talk about. There's so much coming. We are dying to see what happens next in the highly anticipated second season of Daredevil Born Again. What should Marvel fans be expecting from the new season?
I think in the broadest strokes, Matt he's in a completely different reality now after the end of the first season. He's now fighting the power in a massive way. If season 1 was about Wilson Fisk's rise to power, season 2 is about the trappings of power and how hard it is to hold on to that power once you have it. When power is your only motivation. I think it also does a great job of portraying what the challenges are to bring disparate parties together to take on the power. It's one thing for like a bunch of people to point in Kingpin's direction and say, that guy's bad. But it's another thing to get everybody on the same page. It's really fun to watch him try to do that. But he's got a great partner in Karen Page. So I'm very excited for people to see that too.
Speaking of other parties who have been confirmed to be on the show, I'm dying to ask, like, what can you say, or like, can you talk about what it was like bringing Kristen Ritter back as Jessica Jones?
It was so exciting when she walked on set for the first time in the leather jacket and the boots, and you're like, there she is. What's really fun, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but what's really fun about that character is the time jump from the last time we saw her. It's been a while. So we're reestablishing this character and catching the audience up to what the hell she's been up to. And that is filled with a lot of very cool surprises.
Oh, I can't wait. So this coming year is a big year for animation as well. We will see the return of X-Men 97 and Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. X-Men 97, for those of us who grew up in the era, was just such a huge fan favorite. It was so exciting to see it come back. For season 2, are there any storylines that you're especially excited to return to?
It's so great to return to that time period. And there's so much nostalgia for that original series, for me personally and for the fans. It's so rewarding to see these characters back. It's so rewarding to see the cast members come back. And in season 2, we brought, Eric and Julia Leewald and Larry Houston were consulting producers on season 1, but they're full executive producers on season 2 and have really helped guide the team. What's amazing about working with them is not just how amazing they are as storytellers and how sharp their instincts are, but they can speak to the limitations of the time they made the original series, which is the aesthetic of the new show. We live in a time where you can make anything look like anything, and the challenge is actually finding your limitations, finding your parameters, because now you have to make your own parameters so that it's not a free-for-all. And X-Men 97 has like the most amazing, authentic set of aesthetic values, perhaps maybe more than any show I've ever made. And that is born out of the troubles that Eric, Julia, and Larry had when making the original series. What it took to stage an animated show back then is much different than what it takes now. It's a completely different industry. It's a completely different release strategy. The technology is different. Everything's different. That's why it's so remarkable to be able to work with them and to bring them back.
So going from kind of iconic animation to iconic Marvel television of this era, I think WandaVision and Agatha All Along were two series that found, deeply devoted fan bases. And in late 2026, we're going to see the final installment of the trilogy. What can those fans look forward to in VisionQuest?
VisionQuest is so rewarding for fans of the WandaVision trilogy, but also fans of the MCU, especially the Infinity Saga. What's amazing about Terry Matalas is he is like talking to someone who grew up at Marvel. The guy knows the lore as well as any of the producers here. He manages a way to pull from the MCU mythology in such clever ways that don't feel like homework, don't feel like old ideas you have to remember, but feel like fresh ideas that just pull from the same rich well of concepts that the universe has kind of put in the toy box for us. Agatha, in many ways, plays with themes of motherhood in a way that VisionQuest plays with themes of fatherhood. And the entire trilogy is focused in many ways on parenthood as a concept. And in VisionQuest, what Terry did, which has like so much gravity, especially with this amazing cast, Paul Bettany, James Spader, and the pedigree of actors he has, it is really about fathers and sons, and specifically about three generations of, grandfather, father, son. Can a man who had an abusive father be a good father himself? Is really, it's kind of a, it gets very emotional at times, and it's exciting. I mean, it's an exciting adventure. When you see Vision kicking ass and you get all that, Marvel fun and adventure, it's all done on the backdrop of real human stakes and emotion, which makes the show feel very grand. It's like an adrenaline rush, and it's emotional, and it really delivers on a lot of things that, I hope people come to expect from Marvel.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us about the wide range and very exciting things that we're going to be seeing coming from Marvel Television. Do you have any final messages for Marvel fans?
Thank you. I'm constantly talking to fans as much as I can. If you ever see me at a Comic-Con, please come up and say hello. I love talking to fans. For years, I would hide in Hall H, among the fans, and just talk to people next to me. I read a lot of comments online. I really love the discourse, and I love the debates, and that's what I remember loving about comics growing up, was not just reading them, but also, poring over them with my friends afterwards, and movies too. The post-movie debate is something that I remember very fondly from my childhood. So I appreciate all of it.
Well, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thanks so much, Preeti. Appreciate it.
While New York City is the home base for so many Marvel characters, Earth's mightiest heroes are no strangers to the West Coast. Over in the MCU, heroes like Shang-Chi, Ant-Man, and the Wasp have been operating in San Francisco, while the upcoming Wonder Man series is set in Los Angeles. And if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of it all, in the comics, the Avengers have even had a West Coast branch of the team operating in Los Angeles from time to time.
And that's nothing to say of all of our heroes who were born and raised in LA and have spent most of their lives protecting the city. Here to share more about this corner of the Marvel Universe is fellow co-host Anthony Carboni. Take a listen as he breaks down 5 different comics series set in LA with Marvel Comics Associate Editor Danny Khazem.
Got Danny Khazem here with me, associate editor over at Marvel. What are you working on right now?
Hello. Wonder Man, that's going to be launching a little bit later, but the book is announced, it's out there, and we're really excited about it.
I'm so excited about Wonder Man coming back. And of course, Marvel Television has got a Wonder Man series coming out too. And with Simon being so intrinsically linked to LA, we thought maybe we'd run down some very good LA Marvel stories here, because I think, Danny, when people mostly think about Marvel, we think about New York.
It's New York City, front and center.
Absolutely, all the time. And so you don't tend to think about all of the LA or West Coast based stories or things like that. So it's nice that we're kind of bringing LA to the forefront here.
Oh, yeah. And some of these are classics and some of them are, newly classic.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go. These are 5 really great LA Marvel stories, starting in 1975 with The Champions #1, written by Tony Isabella with art by Don Heck. And what a 1975 comic this is.
Oh my. Yeah. I mean, and especially the cover,
Yes.
the group that is brought together here, it is just classic 70s Marvel.
Yeah, we've got Black Widow, we've got Hercules, Ghost Rider, Iceman, Angel, and Venus.
Venus, if you didn't know, is a Marvel character.
You can't think about the Champions without thinking about Venus, but it's also like a very 1975 comic in that, boy, it just jumps right into it. It's basically like, we're walking around, 2 people are having a conversation. It's like, whoa, a hole opened in space and monsters came out. I was like, yes.
Constantly just thrown right in the deep end, right off the bat. You got to get into it.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's fun to kind of see all of these characters together and the way they interact and just sort of like the bombastic nature of the stuff they have to fight right out of the gate.
And I mean, at this point, I believe like the original 5 X-Men were no longer doing anything X-Men related. So to have people like Iceman and Angel show up in here is a big get for that group.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, moving on to West Coast Avengers #1 from 1984. This is written by Roger Stern and penciled by Bob Hall.
Yeah, we get classic Hawkeye, one of the, best Avengers, in my opinion, heading out to the West Coast, building a new team.
It's such a quintessentially classic Marvel vibe in this story. The way it opens with Hawkeye just sort of like giving Mockingbird a tour of the new West Coast mansion and just kind of like, look at us, we're jet-setting superheroes now.
It's also that Avengers were, hanging out in the mansion. So it's like, well, if they're out on the West Coast, what do the digs look like? We got to see where they're living.
And they are living, I mean, listen, Hawkeye's living large. By the time you get to the early 2000s Hawkeye, you look at this comic and you're like, how the mighty have fallen, my friend. To go from living in this mansion to be living in Brooklyn in his 1 bedroom.
There's a poster that they put out around this time that it was half West Coast Avengers, half classic Avengers. And so you've got on the classic Avengers, they've got their circular table. They're all in their costumes. They're, very serious. And then on the left side, you've got the West Coast Avengers hanging out by the pool, just straight chilling. And they've got, the big screen on there. And it's like, how could you be sitting in New York City in Central Park at the Avengers mansion and not be like, why didn't I go out west? Like, this seems like a blast.
What is the paperwork for requesting a transfer in the Avengers? Like, how does that work? But this is also great because we're talking about Wonder Man. Wonder Man is very front and center in this issue.
Mm-hmm.
We've got something that looks like a car chase that turns out, whoops, it's a movie. We were shooting a movie and the guy in the car, well, that's Simon Williams. I would imagine for people at this time, this was kind of like a big reintro to the character, huh?
Oh, for sure. He wasn't really spots in Avengers here and there, but with such a roster and a team that changes often, Wonder Man's not often your top 5, top 7 Avenger. So if he's not a favorite of the creative team or it doesn't make sense for him to be part of that story, you're not going to see Simon for a little bit.
Yeah, but out here, he makes perfect sense. It's a really interesting lineup here, too. I mean, you've got Iron Man, you've got Wonder Man, you've got Hawkeye, you've also got Tigra and Mockingbird.
And you've got different dynamics, too, regardless of them all kind of being a little self-centered and what have you, the way in which those different characters interact in these books. Like, that's what makes team books so special, is that not necessarily animosity, but like when you're having a little tiff with a roommate or a friend, like, getting that kind of rub.
Yeah. I feel like the West Coast Avengers get into more small arguments per day than the East Coast Avengers do.
Absolutely. And I mean, looking at this Avengers team too, you've got a guy like Hawkeye and a guy like Simon that both started out as villains. And that's kind of one of the nicest things about being an Avenger too, is you get second chances. So even if you were a villain or a little shady, like, you can still be an Avenger.
Next, we're jumping to 2003 with Runaways #1, written by Brian K. Vaughan and penciled by Adrian Alfona. One of my favorite series of all time, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I remember picking this book off the shelf, off the spinner rack back in the day, and was hooked. Like, this was some of the earliest work by Brian K. Vaughan, and then dove into so many more things that he wrote. And he's, one of the most prolific writers in comics still to this day. And this was just the first taste of seeing like a very unique story that was still very Marvel.
Yeah, and you got to give a shout out to Adrian Alfona too on the art. It was also a art style that was extremely unique at the time. Just the line work and the coloring and everything just sort of very much fit this vibe that felt like it was a very new, very young sort of story.
Yeah, so this was part of the tsunami wave of books at that time. And so there was an intent to try to attract younger readers, and seeing how big the like manga boom was at the time, trying to find unique artistic talent that may not have felt like a Marvel comic artist at the time. There were so much creative juices in this book. It's a series that made a TV show. It was such a unique story of having these kids who, spoilers, this book is about kids, teens, and they realize that their parents are some of the biggest villains in the world. They are actually super villains. Like, they have powers, they have some history, and as the title says, the kids got to run away.
Yeah, and it is a very classic Marvel thing, this teen angst. Do I come from the right place? Do I want to go into what my parents do? Like, all of this stuff is like very Marvel, but it was just done in such a way that felt so new at the time.
Yeah, it is still a book that resonates with readers today.
Yeah. Next, we have All New Ghost Rider #1. This is from 2014. It was written by Felipe Smith and penciled by Tradd Moore. And this was the introduction of Robbie Reyes as Ghost Rider.
Yeah, such a unique artistic voice in Tradd Moore and in Smith as well. He had done some initial design stuff and covers as well. They meshed so well on this book and made the All New Ghost Rider look like something we've never seen before.
I remember seeing the cover of this one and it was such a strong cover and it had such graphic sensibility to it. I saw this on the shelf and I was like, oh my God, I've got to get this one.
And I mean, it's a unique Ghost Rider design, but also so LA. Like, he's working in a garage, fixing up cars. And again, you've got that very Marvel soap opera angst. It's just him and his younger brother. He's got to take care of his younger brother. He's trying to do right by himself, the city at large. And then, as you'll see in the issue, comes to a situation where he becomes a Ghost Rider. He makes a deal and he's got a hell charger. Like, this is who knew you could go from a motorcycle to a crazy muscle car?
Yeah. This is a very East LA rooted character, which I think is so important. Like, it is intrinsic to who Robbie is, which made this such a wonderful story. And it made it a unique story at the time as well.
And unlike our West Coast Avengers, who were kind of transplants over to the West Coast, like, born and bred, Robbie Reyes is from LA.
Yes. Right. The West Coast Avengers are very much like that classic idea of moving to Hollywood and making it big, and whoops, we're fancy and we're celebrities and we're in the industry and whatever. And then Robbie is like, no, I grew up here. You can just live here. People have jobs here. People live normal lives.
Yep.
And speaking of which, our fifth one here is Reptile #1 from 2021, written by Terry Blass, penciled by Enid Balam. And this is another LA family and LA superhero.
And Reptile, he's been around for almost 20 years, I think, at this point. I think he came around during the Avengers Initiative, which was back in the early to mid 2000s. We had a big blowout with Avengers and New Avengers and Civil War. And so then there was this influx of new characters, because if the Superhero Registration Act went through, you've got to register to be a superhero. And if you're not, you got to skate by on the fringes of society. And with this Reptile story, we're also dealing with the fallout of something as well, where there was this, at the time, Kamala's Law, which kind of forced minor heroes to be sponsored by your more mature adult superheroes. Otherwise, can't be doing that.
The beginning of this story is very fun because it's Reptile being like, oh yeah, I used to be a superhero. You probably actually don't remember me at all, right? And it goes through his story and you're like, oh yeah, he was in those. Almost like Wonder Man, where it's like he was used very sparingly.
And also, every comic is someone's first comic. So you want to make sure, regardless of if you know who this character is or not, like, hey, here's a little bit of history of who I am. So yeah, you probably don't remember me. These are some of the things I did, but now let's hop into the story where we are now and continue.
Yeah, it shows just how much comics have changed and styles have changed over the last 15, 20 years.
Totally. The thing that keeps us coming back is the heart of these stories and the characters themselves and how we relate to them. So, someone like Reptile, especially in today's world, it's great to have characters like that out there.
Danny, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Yeah, of course. Always glad to be here.
Now, while the invincible Iron Man shares the West Coast with some of his fellow Avengers, he's making a dramatic shift in his upcoming comic book series, moving into a gamma bunker in New Mexico.
Now, if you just heard that and you thought, wait, wasn't that where Bruce Banner became the Incredible Hulk? Yes. And yes, the answer is yes. Tony has taken over that exact same bunker. I know you've got questions, and trust me, so did I. So I sat down with the writer behind the all-new Iron Man issue #1, Joshua Williamson, to get some answers. I am hanging out with New York Times best-selling comic book writer Josh Williamson. Josh, how are you today, my friend?
I am good. I'm just working on making comic books today. How are you doing?
I'm talking about comic books today, which is great.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be talking about Iron Man issue #1 that you and this amazing creative team are bringing to life. So before we delve into this run, give us a little bit of your history and fandom of Tony Stark, and please include your favorite Iron Man suit.
Oh my gosh. I got to pull up my Iron Man files for that one. But yeah, so my origin story. Oh my gosh, dude. All right. So I have never lived in a house that didn't have comic books in it. Both my mom and dad read comics. I always had a short box in the house. I was always just around comics like my entire life. There's never been a moment where I haven't kind of had comics be a part of my life. And when I was in high school, I was 14 years old. I got a job working at a comic book store. It was my first job. I did that all through high school, all through college. But that's really it. I mean, I really just wanted to make comics as a little kid. I really love these characters. I'm obsessed with all kinds of different pieces of comics, how comics as a machine works. And I think that's one of the things I love about Tony is how Tony sees this kind of like life as this machine with moving parts. And he's always trying to look at that. And Iron Man is one of my favorite characters at Marvel. He is one that I think about all the time. I mean, that's why with this job, it was so funny because I had been thinking about this book and this character for years. It's like, I remember when my family and we went to Disneyland about 2 years ago. And so we went, and it was the first time we were able to go to Avengers Campus. And I tell this story all the time, but it's a true story. Like, I remember walking into Avengers Campus for the first time and getting hit with that music. You can hear the Avengers theme. And then my kids got to meet Doctor Strange. Thor was walking around. We were meeting all that stuff. And then getting it to meet Iron Man. And it's so funny how it made me be a kid again. But yeah, this is one of my favorite characters.
Nice. Well, that's good. And also, I'm sorry, favorite suit. I need to know.
Yes.
I need to know, Josh. Because I'm a Silver Centurion fan. I'm a big Silver Centurion
fan. Are you really?
Fan. I love the Silver Centurion.
Listen, I really like Model 4. It's sort of the one that was like the iconic Iron Man armor from the late 60s, early 70s. Because Iron Man didn't really get his own book until 68, right? It's like he was appearing in other things before that. But then you get to that's the armor that I like. I like Model 9. Model 12, which I think that's the one, or is it Model 13 that has the code name of the modular armor? I think it's 12.
Yes, the modular armor is a big hit.
I'm always kind of torn between the bulkiness of Iron Man, because technically I think it should be slender and tight on him. But yeah, I don't know. I would say some of those early ones, we have a scene in issue 2 where he wears the Mach 4. And I was very happy about it.
Well, let's get into the book. So the tagline is Tony Stark is the most dangerous weapon in the Marvel Universe. Can you elaborate on what that means and how that idea kind of shapes the story you're telling in the series?
Yeah, I've always been obsessed with this idea that when Tony was Tony before, he was this self-centered jerk who only cared about himself. He did not care about anything outside of himself. Everything was kind of through a selfish lens. And then he goes through this traumatic experience. He gets put into this cave where he thinks he's going to die. And then he creates this armor out of it, right? And then afterwards, he comes out of the cave a different person. He becomes this person who cares about people and believes in hope and wants to help and share his genius with the world. He recognizes that his genius is something special, and now he wants to share with people. And it goes beyond just him wanting to make this armor. And that's the thing, though. He makes this armor. And then after that, once he makes this armor, there's all these Iron Man stories that kind of come back around to armor wars, right? It's like somebody's going to steal the armor. The armor is the thing. We want the armor. We want the armor. People are stealing it. They're stealing designs. Like some variation of armor wars is sort of a consistent thing, especially since armor wars. The idea of that, right? Of like the armor is the thing. And I was always like, but the armor isn't the thing. It's Tony. Tony's the thing. Like he's the genius. He's the person that made it. Wouldn't you want the person who made it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then it's like, well, then we recognize we can't necessarily control Tony, which don't get me wrong. People are going to try to control Tony. That's also part of the story as well. But to have somebody say, Tony's the weapon. Tony's the weapon. So what we want to do is we want to build another Tony. That's the real weapon here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're, I'm going to say Madame Mask, she has this history with Tony. She knows Tony. So from her point of view, she's the one that's really saying that. She's the one that's saying he's the weapon. It's not the armor. Like she's been around. She recognizes like, no. Because here's the thing. Other people can put on that armor. And we've seen that other people can build that armor, but they can't do what Tony does. And so I wanted to do a story about that, about Tony and this experience he went through and how he became a better person, that ultimately what he built in that cave was not the armor. Tony built Tony.
Yeah. So let's talk about the aesthetic of the book and how you're interpreting those iconic elements, like the armor, like the workshop, like Stark. And she's like, what have you and artist Carmen Carnero kind of talked about in terms of how you want all of that to kind of gel together in terms of the aesthetic of the books?
Yeah. So one of the things that's really important to me when I'm working on any of these characters is respecting like the legacy of the character, the core of the character, the things that people love about that character, you know, like what works. But then you got to take that. You got to take all of that because you don't want to be all about nostalgia and you don't want to be all about going backwards. You want to take all those parts and you got to find ways of moving it forward. Mm-hmm. And so that was the whole thing with this book. It was about moving it forward and taking all those iconic parts, the armor, the settings, him, Tony, and the past, and then being like, okay, how do we level it up? How do we go forward with it? And so I wanted to really put all that into this book and sort of the aesthetic of it and kind of the driving force of it. But then working with Carmen, like talking to her about making it a little bit sexy, you know, like let's get him back into kind of that headspace of like, Tony is this cocky person and he's still having fun with it. He enjoys being Iron Man. You know, he doesn't feel burdened by it. That's something I think a lot about with Tony. That goes with his whole thing. Like he's like, I'm going to save the world. And that's a good thing, you know? And then just kind of putting all that together in a big pot, stirring it up. But yeah, I really, I think we're putting together something really interesting and different. And I do think like we are looking at how he sees everything is kind of like a machine that he can build and play with at the same time as just being this cocky person
that we know and love.
Yeah. And that's it though. I think that's it too, is like people want that from Tony. I mean, I made sure this book was very accessible for new readers. If you haven't read an Iron Man book in years, you're going to be good. If you've been reading Iron Man like me the whole time, you're going to be good. You're going to get the stuff you want. We're going to keep these pieces going, but I wanted to make sure that it was as accessible as possible.
Nice. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking with us. Before you go, where can people get the book? When is it going to be out there? When are we going to be able to enjoy this brand new chapter in the life of Iron Man?
So Iron Man #1, it comes out this month, January 28th. It's going to be here really, really soon. Go to your comic store. Talk about the book with people. Talk to your retailer. You know, they're there to be your friend. They want to hang out with you and they want to talk comics. You know, with Iron Man, I think we're giving you some stuff to talk about. I'm really excited about this book. The work that we put into Iron Man #1, it all comes from a place of love for this character. And we're hoping we can share that love with you when you read Iron Man #1. So yeah, go pick it up at your comic store on January 28th.
Iron Man is one of Marvel's most beloved superheroes. Not only has Tony Stark won hearts through the comics since his debut in 1962, but he's gone on to grace screens in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, introducing a new audience to the irresistible, genius billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. Marvel Studios' Avengers Endgame shows just how far Iron Man is willing to go to protect his loved ones and save humanity. Half the universe's inhabitants have been snapped out of existence by Thanos and the 6 Infinity Stones he controls, which give him endless power. And it's up to the Avengers to undo the damage. Our heroes do their best to prevent Thanos from putting the Infinity Gauntlet back on, but when he manages to grab it, all seems lost. Thankfully, Iron Man has one final trick up his own metal gauntlet and takes possession of the Infinity Stones without Thanos even realizing it. Tony is aware of the price he's likely to pay if he uses the power of the Infinity Stones to defeat Thanos. When Tony makes his choice, the result is one of the greatest examples of sacrifice for the greater good, and one of the most satisfying wins in MCU history.
I am inevitable.
Marvel Studios' Avengers Endgame is available to stream only on Disney+.
Next week on the official Marvel podcast, we hear from executive producer and head writer on Wonder Man, Andrew Guest.
It was, to me, the most ideal Marvel project I could think of, because from the beginning, they wanted to do something that felt different, and they wanted to write about Hollywood.
Till then, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you listen, and be sure to rate the show or drop a comment.
That is it for today. This episode of the official Marvel podcast was hosted by Victoria Ying and me, Langston Belton.
Our producers are Jasmine Estrada and Anita Flores. Additional production help from Rye Dorsey.
Brad Barton is our senior manager of audio production and development, and our production manager is Emily Godfrey.
Mixed by Zachary Goldberg.
Our theme music is by Ida Akbal.
Executive produced by Larissa Rosen.
Thanks for listening.